Think back to the first time. Not the relationship. Not the years that followed. The very first moment you realized it was happening. Maybe it was something small. The way they laughed. The way they said your name. The way a completely ordinary Tuesday suddenly felt like the most important day of your life. You probably thought you were just happy. You probably thought this was what people meant when they talked about love. But something far more ancient and far more violent was happening inside your brain. And if you had been able to see it in real time, you would not have called it romantic at all. You would have called it an emergency. The first thing that happens when you fall in love is not a feeling. It is a chemical detonation. Your brain, the 3-pound organ that has been quietly running your life since before you could speak, suddenly receives a signal it treats as more urgent than almost anything else. And it responds the way it always responds to something that matters for survival. It floods your system. Dopamine fires first. Dopamine is your brain's reward molecule. It is the same chemical that surges when you eat after days of hunger, when you win something, when you hear a song that hits exactly right. But research by biological anthropologist Helen Fisher at Rutgers University found that the dopamine surge triggered by romantic love is not just similar to these experiences. It is comparable in intensity to cocaine. Your brain on love is a brain on drugs. And like any drug, the effect is not just pleasure. It is obsession. Dopamine does not just make something feel good. It makes your brain decide that this thing, this specific thing, is the most important source of reward in your environment. It redirects your attention. It narrows your focus. It makes you think about them when you are trying to think about something else. That is not poetry. That is neuropharmacology. But dopamine is only the beginning. Right alongside it, norepinephrine surges through your nervous system. Norepinephrine is your alertness hormone. It is the same chemical that sharpens your senses when you hear a loud noise in the dark, when something surprises you, when your body needs to pay attention right now. When you fall in love, norepinephrine floods your system and you suddenly notice everything about this person. The exact color of their eyes. The specific way they move their hands when they talk. Details that would normally slide past your attention without leaving a mark become engraved. And then cortisol rises. Cortisol. The stress hormone. The same molecule that spikes when you are running late, when you get bad news, when your body perceives a threat. Helen Fisher's research team found that new lovers show significantly elevated cortisol levels compared to people who are single or in long-term relationships. And this is the part nobody puts on greeting cards. Early romantic love is, by every biological measure, a mild state of chronic stress. Your palms sweat. Your heart rate increases. You feel a low hum of anxiety that never quite goes away. You replay every interaction obsessively, searching for clues about how they feel. You can't eat properly. You can't sleep properly. Your baseline level of physiological arousal is elevated for weeks. Sound familiar? Here is the deeper truth. Your brain is not distinguishing between the joy of love and the anxiety of love because to your brain, they are the same signal. They are both telling you, this matters. Pay attention. Do not lose this. And then serotonin drops. In 1999, psychiatrist Donatella Mariziti at the University of Pisa made a discovery that reframed the neuroscience of love entirely. She measured serotonin levels in 3 groups: people who had recently fallen in love, people diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder, and healthy controls with no romantic attachment. The people in love and the people with OCD had nearly identical serotonin levels. Both were dramatically lower than the healthy control group. Serotonin is one of your brain's primary regulators of intrusive thought. When serotonin is high, your mind moves through topics fluidly, one thing to the next. When it drops, thoughts loop. They repeat. They demand your attention over and over without resolution. When you fall in love and cannot stop thinking about someone, when their face appears uninvited in the middle of a work meeting, when you check your phone for the 100th time in an hour hoping for a message, you are not being romantic. You are experiencing a clinically measurable drop in serotonin that makes intrusive repetitive thought biologically inevitable. You were not obsessed with them because they were special. Your brain made them special because it was already obsessed. But why? Why would evolution build this into you? Why would the human brain construct a system this disruptive, this destabilizing, this expensive in terms of cognitive resources and emotional energy? Go back. Go back to a world where your ancestors lived in small nomadic groups of roughly 50 to 150 individuals. In that world, finding the right reproductive partner was not a lifestyle choice. It was a survival imperative. A child in that environment required years of intensive care, access to food, protection from predators and rival groups. Raising a child alone was nearly impossible. This meant that pair bonding, forming a deep selective attachment to a specific individual who would stay, who would invest, who would not leave when things became difficult, was one of the most consequential decisions a human being could make. Your brain could not afford to treat this casually. So it didn't. It built a system that hijacked your attention, elevated your motivation, narrowed your focus to a single target, disrupted your sleep and appetite so you would not be distracted by mundane needs, and made walking away feel neurologically unbearable. Not because love is irrational, but because love, for most of human history, was survival. And there is another layer. One that goes even deeper. When Helen Fisher and her colleagues placed people who described themselves as intensely in love into an MRI machine and showed them photographs of their partners, they found something unexpected. The region of the brain that lit up most intensely was not the cortex, the seat of reason and language and higher thought. It was the ventral tegmental area and the caudate nucleus. The same subcortical regions that activate for hunger, for thirst, for basic drives. Romantic love, in its early stages, is not processed by your thinking brain. It is processed by the same ancient circuitry that tells you when you need water. You did not think your way into love. You were pulled there by something old. Something that predates language, predates culture, predates every story humans have ever told about what love is supposed to feel like. And yet, there is one more chemical. The one that comes later. The one that transforms the emergency into something sustainable. Oxytocin. Oxytocin is sometimes called the bonding hormone, though that name undersells what it actually does. It is released through touch, through sustained eye contact, through physical closeness, through the simple act of being consistently present with someone over time. Oxytocin does not produce the manic highs of dopamine. It produces something quieter. Warmth. Safety. The particular comfort of a person who has become familiar. Neuroscientist Sue Carter at Indiana University spent decades studying oxytocin in pair bonding species and found that it is not just a reward molecule. It is a calibration molecule. It literally rewires the brain to associate one specific individual with safety, with home. This is the transition every long love makes if it survives the early storm. From dopamine obsession to oxytocin belonging. From the emergency to the anchor. From the fire to the warmth. The first time you fell in love, your brain staged what was, by every neurological measure, a crisis. It commandeered your attention. It disrupted your chemistry. It made a single other human being feel as necessary as oxygen. And it did all of this not because something had gone wrong, but because something had gone exactly right. Because the most ancient part of your brain, the part that has been keeping humans alive for hundreds of thousands of years, recognized something worth holding on to. And it made sure you would not let go. Think back to the first time. You thought you were just happy. But your brain, the one running quietly beneath every thought you have ever had already decided that this was survival. That this mattered. That this was worth every disruption, every sleepless night, every moment of unbearable uncertainty. It was not wrong.